change of things.
Weird.
Yeah, it does seem that way. Yeah, I guess that's all we're doing tonight, all other than gonna close the.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's okay.
Okay. Well, that's fine, I don't know where you guys came from. Okay. Didn't want to-
I did.
I think we have
Well, if they are, then they are. It's fine.
Josh today. No. No, just for two.
Good brain.
It's just they're making some changes now, because last time as they had to.
Good evening. Welcome to the Township of Lopatcong Planning Board meeting, reorganization, and regular agenda tonight. We do have some official business. The date is January 24th, 2024. If everyone would bow their head for a moment of silence. And then stand for the oath of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided, indicating the time and place of the meeting in accordance with Chapter 231 of the Public Laws of 1975 by advertising a notice in the Star Ledger and the Express Times, and by posting a copy on the bulletin board in the municipal building. We are going to appoint, reappoint, and swear in if the following people will stand, and you have your oath. Andrew Melendez, Class 2. Class 3, James Polito. Class 4, Robert Sampson. Class 4, Anita Coy. And our alternate is not here this evening, so the attorney will swear you in.
That's all right. I'll swear him in later. If you'd raise your right hands, do you solemnly swear or affirm that you will support the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of New Jersey, and that you will bear true faith and allegiance to the same and to the governments established in the United States and in this state under the authority of the people, and that you will faithfully, impartially, and justly perform all the duties of the office of planning board members of the Township of Lopatcong to the best of your ability, so help you God? I do. Congratulations, you're sworn.
So if you would take your oath, and on the right-hand side, sign your name at the bottom, there's a couple lines there, and write your address, and then if you would, let the attorney have it, and he will notarize it for us. Oh, that's good.
Gentlemen, would you please raise your right hand? No, you don't need to. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you'll give the board throughout the course of this year will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
You lost it already? Andrew? Anita, do you have yours? Anita? Do you have your oath? Fill that one out, Bob.
Thank you.
I'm going to go ahead and call the roll. Members Coyle?
Here.
DeLeo?
Here.
Hartman? Melendez? Polito?
Here.
Coy? Mayor Wright? That's it for now. The next order of business is the election of officers. We're going to hold nominations for the chair and the vice chair and the appointment of the secretary. So right now, do I hear a nomination for chairman? Anyone can nominate someone.
I nominate Bob Sampson.
Second.
Are there any other nominations? Okay, we'll close that portion. I would like to open the floor for nominations for vice chair.
I'd like to nominate Susan DeLeo.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, are there any other nominations? Okay. I'd like to open the floor for appointment of the secretary.
I'll nominate Beth Dilks.
Second.
I'll second that.
Thank you very much. And I'll roll call all three. Members Coyle,
Yes.
DeLeo,
Yes.
Melendez, Polito,
Yes.
and Coy.
Yes.
Thank you. The next order of business, we're going to quickly do the reorganization consent agenda 1 through 5. And as you see, that's the annual meeting calendar, the reappointment of our attorney, Mr. Bryce, our planner, Mr. Ritter, our engineer, Mr. Wisniewski, and the adoption of rules and procedures for the governance of meetings. I need a motion.
Motion. Second.
Okay. And I'll roll call that. Members Coyle,
Yes.
DeLeo,
Yes.
Melendez, Polito,
Yes.
and Coyle. I would like to make one mention, Resolution 2405 has been,
Slightly modified.
and I'll let the attorney explain that.
Yeah, there was discussion last year, but we didn't meet towards the end of the year, about modifying it to take out the public comment period, just the open public comment. So that was taken out as part of the agenda. So people can obviously still speak when it comes to anything to do with any application, but there's not going to be a set period of public comment.
And you all got the copy of the revised rules and regulations. The last page is an acknowledgement. If you would please fill that out and make sure that I get that, so I can place that on the record. And so for right now, I'm going to turn this over to our new chairman, Bob Sampson, and we'll move forward with the business of the evening. Bob, you can take the chair.
Okay, so tonight, we have the cubes come in front of us. They want to make some changes in their drawing, so Counselor, you want to take the floor?
Congratulations, everyone, on their appointments and reappointments. My name is Chris Costa from Stevens and Lee. I represent the Cubes at US 22 Sub 1 LLC in connection with their project at the Phillipsburg Mall. Back in June, end of June, this board granted preliminary and final site plan approval to construct an 833,000 square foot warehouse on the property. The resolution was adopted in July. It was July 26th of last year. The mall, as you know, crosses over two borders, Lopatcong and Pohatcong. The relevant block and lot in Lopatcong is block 102, lot 9.01 and 9.03. 9.01 is basically what you call half of the mall property, the portion that's in Lopatcong, and 9.03 is where the Friendlies was. So those are the two lots in question. Since the resolution was adopted this summer, we've had extensive conversations with Kohl's and also worked with your professionals to change around some of the internal circulation on the site to further separate the passenger vehicle traffic and the truck traffic. And that is pretty much the extent of the changes to the plan. There's a few other changes that we need to address as well, but most of the changes that you'll see pertain to changes in the circulation from the site or within the site and then also from the site. And we're seeking approval from this board this evening for the amendment of the plan to take into account these changes. The changes we initially did not believe triggered any variances, but having talked to Mr. Ritter, there is one exception. We are seeking a variance for the slope of one of the basins, which is now has a spillway within the rear buffer, and that would be the buffer between this property and the property behind it, which is currently vacant farmland, and may at some point be developed into a warehouse per the redevelopment zone. So it's not a buffer between us and any residential property. And we made that change and created that variance basically to make the slope of the basin safer so that it basically satisfied all the categories of a class 4 dam versus I think one of the slopes triggered a class 5. So that's why we evened out that slope. That's the only new relief we're seeking this evening. Other than that, we really are just seeking to present to this board and have you understand the changes that we made to the plan. We have one witness tonight, and it's Daniel Reeves, who is our engineer. He is the engineer who testified earlier. And he'll be addressing Mr. Ritter's report and Mr. Sturbin's and Mr. Wisniewski's report. We also have available, should you have additional questions, our traffic engineer, John Harder, and we also have a planner available if there's a necessity for planning testimony. So unless the board has any questions at this point, I'd like to introduce Mr. Reeves as our first witness. I believe he's been qualified and probably just needs to be sworn in, but I'm happy to give his background again if the board would prefer.
Would you raise your right hand?
Sure.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state your name, spell your last for the record.
Sure. Daniel Reeves, R-E-E-V-E-S, from Bowler Engineering.
And Mr. Reeves, does your license remain current and good state?
It does.
Okay. Go through the changes to the plan and also address the comments in the two reports.
Sure. We do have one exhibit here this evening to present. And I'll talk through it and see that there is very minor changes. So mark this as A1.
A1, please, yes.
Sure.
Thank you.
Marked in the right-hand corner, top right-hand corner. And Exhibit A1 is the overall site layout plan that was submitted to the board and to the board's professionals with the last revision date of January 8th of 2024, sheet C301. And what this is the overall site layout plan with the landscaping overlaid and added some color for some nice graphics for the presentation for this evening. As you heard from council, what we are here for tonight is very minor amendment change. In fact, if you were to look at the presentation board that we presented in the middle of the year last year compared to now, most likely you wouldn't be able to tell the changes that we are looking to propose and discuss here this evening. Mostly, as you heard, is more for the inner loop road circulation. The truck circulation on the inner loop road was basically revised in the northwest corner here that I'll further talk about. Again, that is to minimize the commingling of passenger vehicles for the outer parcels as well as the coals compared to the warehouse development. The way we were able to do that, you ask, is by sliding the before slip road for the northern loading dock a little bit further to the west to force all truck traffic, majority of the truck traffic, to go out the western driveway, which was previously in the location of the former friendly slot. Before, most of the circulation would come around the back and exit out the the southernmost driveway, planned eastern driveway. So with this modification, majority of the truck traffic will all exit out on the northern or the planned-most western driveway and eliminate the commingling of any of the outer parcels as well as the coals. Another way to minimizing that and ask how can we monitor that and control that will be two measures. One, an actual physical measure, which we are proposing a gate to close off this eastern portion for truck traffic. The gate will be just to the east of this four-way intersection that will remain closed. Obviously, there will be Knox boxes and be able to open for emergency access only. We've been coordinating that with the fire official. Other means, similar to our prior testimony, is the site will have extensive wayfinding signage throughout all areas where truck traffic is anticipated. There will be extensive signage to direct the trucks where to go, what exit to go to, depending on which route they need to get to. So, quick walkthrough on how circulation will be provided under this new layout. Any trucks coming in from Route 22 can make a left into the site and immediately get back into the inner loop road, same as how it was before. Once you get to that inner loop road, they'll be able to fully circulate around the building without being able to commingle with the outer parcels. If you're now leaving the facility and you're in the planned northern loading dock, instead of coming out and making your right how it was before and potentially commingling here or going around the building to come out to the rear side here, all truck traffic will be able to come in, make a right, and exit out to this. Same thing with the southern driveway. They'll be able to come out to the western inner loop road, be able to use this slip road connection again, and be able to make the left and come into here. So that's the majority of the intended traffic. If trucks do need to head north on 22, they will still be able to come in, make a left at the intersection, same as how it was originally proposed. Other changes here that you might be more prevalent with this is our stormwater design. As you heard from council, and based upon some comments and feedback that we received from Colliers Engineering, we have redesigned the stormwater facilities on this planned south portion of the layout here. But again, this was only to classify these basins as class 4 dams rather than the originally class 5 dams. This is a much safer dam, lowered the height of the berms, and do so. So in order to do that, we needed to, instead of one larger basin, one larger wet pond, we split it into 2 wet ponds and then a bioretention basin instead of the 4-bay. So in general nature, the design still stays as is, just changing some of the impoundment areas, qualifying for a class 4 dam, makes this site as a whole much better, both on-site as well as downstream stability. To that, Mr. Ritter in his letter did acknowledge one variance or waiver about the basin location with respect to the southern property line. That is with respect to the the required buffer along this property line. As you heard, this lot is intended for a industrial commercial development, and I will note that this has not changed drastically from where it was previously. Previously, I believe we were approximately 70 feet off the property line to the top of the berm. With this modification, we're approximately now 35 feet. So we are a little bit closer just based upon some of the elevation changes of these 2 basins. And the key point to note is that the basin is best suited in this location. Based upon the drainage and the topography, everything is draining there currently today. In fact, there is a very old, in desperate need of repair basin there currently. So just naturally fits with this and is in line with the testimony and the waivers and variances that were granted on the previous application. One other thing to note that was referenced in the Collier's letter was with respect to the fire official. We have had the opportunity to sit and talk with the fire official, I believe as recently as last week, to go through some of the comments. Plans have been fully reviewed and basically approved, besides one minor comment to add an additional hydrant behind the coals. So we will be happy to comply with that and meet any of the other requests from the fire official.
And if I can just interrupt you for a second.
Yes.
Just to kind of organize this with the report. I believe that's comment 202 of the report.
That is correct.
Which is listed as partially addressed. So we'll be able to fully address that.
That is correct. One other thing to note about with respect to the change in this driveway, again, this slip road and this connection just slipped a little bit further to the west. What that ended up doing is actually actually reducing the amount of trailer drop stalls by about 3 stalls. So less trailers on the property, as well as some further design of some of the building, adding in some drive-in ramps on the eastern side. We actually lost, I believe, a total of 2 loading docks as well. So in nature, we actually reduced the amount of loading docks as well as trailer parking with the amended plan. But however, the building size is completely the same. It has not been enlarged or anything else like that. Everything stays in line from where our previous approval was. Running through a couple of the other, to close out with some of the other Collier comments, we will be able to basically comply with all. I do want to note the ones that we will be able to comply with, which will be 2.08, 3.11, and 7.01H. We'll be happy to comply. All of these remaining 3 plus the 2.02 were partially satisfied before. We'd be happy to comply with those.
I think 3.2 as well. That's the spot grades,
Yes.
and we can comply with that as well.
Yes. There are two comments, 3.8G and 6.09, that were with respect to the basin design and the underlying layer beneath that. We will be happy to work with any necessary revisions to the satisfaction of the board engineer. Just had a conversation prior to this, work with them to make sure we are fully compliant to their satisfaction.
And just to clarify why we called out those items, if you go through the engineering report, most times it says comment addressed, or it might say, like in bonding, it's where it's not addressed, but it isn't timely yet. And then there were some comments that were partially addressed, and that's why we're addressing the ones that are partially addressed. And 3.8G and 6.09 are ones where we're proposing to work with the engineer to their satisfaction.
And then one thing, circling back to Mr. Ritter's letter, we spoke about the landscaping. I believe there was also additional comment about the traffic and the need for the ward for any signal. I would like to note, based upon the anticipated trips and everything that was presented by the prior testimony from the traffic engineer, and with both the on-site signal as well as the signal on 22, just not seeing a feasible or warrant an additional signal at this, just based upon how that would all be coordinated. So we do believe how all of our layout is being situated is in line and best suited for our traffic circulation. That concludes my direct testimony. If there's any questions.
Does anybody have any questions?
Might have been answered before at the other meetings, but where the trucks are coming in and out of the mall entrances that are currently there, are they being widened, or is that being changed at all, or is it going to stay the way it is?
You're thinking about the center entrance?
Yeah, like that one. Is that being changed?
There are some minor modifications to some of the curb layouts once you come internal into the site. All of the existing curb openings and driveway in the Route 22 are remaining as is, so we are not widening necessarily the intersections. Some of the internal circulations will be for the additional lanes to get truck traffic immediately into that inner loop road.
So it is addition for the trucks to come in and out and everything with cars and...
Correct, yes. Turning movements were all provided based on the prior testimony and application demonstrated all of that.
I have a couple questions. Where the basins are, in the bottom there, how wide is that buffer?
I believe it was a 50
The 50
foot buffer
requirement is 50.
that's required?
50 is required.
50 foot's required, correct.
So do we need any additional planting since we're kind of infringing on?
The answer is the applicant has revised the landscape plans as part of the condition of approval.
Okay.
And they've added additional landscaping along that whole edge. The variance that they need for the encroachment into the buffer is because of the need for an overflow spillway that actually has to pass through the buffer, and it's about 200 feet wide, so it's no small thing. That area will be clear of vegetation. That part of the buffer will be gone. Obviously, you're not going to plant in the overflow. But that's also, as pointed out by the applicant's engineer, is not really facing any residential areas. It's facing the property to the rear. It shouldn't really present a problem in terms of buffering. But that's the encroachment, and that's the need for the variance that we're talking about tonight.
And to your point, if I can add in to what Mr. Ritter just explained, the location of that spillway is right here. You can kind of see the break in the landscaping that Mr. Ritter just identified, which is, I think, approximately 192 feet to be exact from what our design is. For that break is just to have that emergency spillway. The prior applications, there were only a few trees along this. We've had now came back and, as Mr. Rick explained, put extensive landscaping along that, within that buffer area, everywhere else just behind that basin.
And that won't create any problems for future, because they're gonna develop that site back there, aren't they, eventually?
Well, yes, well, that's our belief that it's going to be developed in the back. No, the plantings, the landscaping, the improvements they're showing there should not represent any impediment to the back being developed.
Is there substantial grade change at that point as well? Or am I
Yes.
incorrect on that? That falls off after the base area?
Yes.
So it'd be a tricky place to plant as well beyond there. Any other questions or comments?
I had one, it was in the letter and it's probably partially answered. The new intersection obviously is not gonna be a controlled intersection. The question I guess I had is that trucks coming off of 22 and going to enter the warehouse facilities, and also, as far as that goes, trucks leaving the facility and using that entrance to access 22. Is there sufficient sight distances that will permit the trucks, because they have to cross two intersections? In other words, when they come off at 22, they have to, for lack of a better term, cross the commercial driveway. Then they have to do a crossing to get into the warehouse. Is there sufficient sight distance in there that, since it's a non-controlled intersection, that everybody can see what's going on and can decide whether they should turn, not turn, whether they should go through the intersection? Because they have to see through two intersections to know when to make their move, I guess is the way to put it.
Yeah, so, so that was certainly looked at, and because of all the other control measures with the stop bars and everything else, there is certainly adequate sight distance for all these driveways for the egress.
Okay, because also between the commercial drive and the warehouse drive, we have our noise barrier. We have basically a barrier sitting in there that's going to be landscaped in front of. That's my only question, is that does everybody have enough sight distance to know when they should make their move, their turn, without interfering with somebody else that doesn't realize they're in the process of coming in or out?
Yeah,
And both of those intersections are stop controlled, right?
correct,
Okay.
yes. That's what I meant by that, is like, since they are stop controlled, vehicles will be stopping, be able to look. It's not going to be, freely flowing everywhere, so that you'll be able to see and make your decision at that point.
Okay.
We're good with that?
No, I'm good with the explanation. If they believe there's adequate room in there, that's fine.
Anybody else have any more questions or comments, concerns? No?
Chairman?
Yep, so, oh, yeah. Any public comments?
This is my first without public comment.
Okay, so I think that we're gonna have to have two votes here. We're gonna have to vote on the variance. Do we need to have any conditions as part of that, or is it just?
No, I don't think this warrants any conditions. I think the plan they've submitted, we know what they intend to do. I've reviewed the landscaping, there's adequate landscaping to the rear. So I don't believe there's a need for any conditions. It's just whether or not the board is comfortable with the encroachment and that the adequate reasons have been given for it, which I think they have, so I think we're comfortable.
Yeah.
Okay, so at this time, I'll entertain a motion to approve the variance for the stormwater, as they've shown here.
I'll make that motion.
Second,
I'll second.
roll call.
Yes. Members Coyle,
Yes.
Melendez,
Yes.
Toledo,
Yes.
Coy. Yes. Vice Chairwoman DeLeo,
Yes.
Chairman Sampson.
Yes. Okay, so then the next vote will have to be to approve the revised site plan.
The amendment to the site plan.
You know, and I think would the conditions be that they have to be, you know, given to the county and the Powhatan Township and make them aware, or?
They're going to be subject to the same conditions that were part of their original preliminary and final site plan approval. Those will not go away.
Okay,
And I think that in that particular resolution, all of those concerns were addressed. So this would be just simply permitting the amendment to that plan subject to all prior conditions.
okay.
Mr. Chair, I guess just to answer your question, or just to provide some additional clarity, and maybe to ask the applicant, I know that the board secretary and I was copied on an approval, a conditional approval from the Warren County Planning Board. Just for clarity, was the plan submitted to the Warren County Planning Board this version of the plan, or was it a prior version of the plan?
This plan has been submitted. We had initially submitted a prior plan.
Right.
And then we subsequently submitted this plan. And we've got the conditional approval from them,
Right, I
and the
did-
conditions
I
are.
did see that. And I understood that Powhatan Township also has reviewed and approved this plan as well.
Correct.
Just for
Correct.
further clarity.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that was my concern, that we have
But they haven't seen it,
everybody on the same board here.
and I believe they are.
Okay. All right, so at this time, we'll entertain a motion to approve the revised site plan. As we just said here, anybody want to make that motion?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Roll call?
Yes. Members Coyle,
Yes.
Melendez,
Yes.
Toledo,
Yes.
Coy. Yes. Vice Chairwoman DeLeo,
Yes.
Chairman Sampson.
Yes.
Thank you. Good evening. Appreciate it.
Is that you, right?
Yeah, there's only two things that I want to bring up. One is just, I talked about a little bit about this before, maybe to do a honorary resolution for Gary. We talked about that, because I know he served quite a bit of years. And I can put that together, and that can coordinate with the The other one is, and the zoning officers here now is, maybe has a comment to it, the board may want to make a recommendation to the zoning ordinance. I know that we have that funky little ordinance that says if it's pre-existing non-conforming structure, any change requires variance relief, which seems to handcuff our zoning officer and tell people, you gotta go to the zoning board, even if what they're going to do doesn't exacerbate the non-conforming condition. It may be wise for this body to draft, or authorize the draft of an ordinance revision in conjunction with the zoning officer, the planner and myself, to present to you, to ultimately present to the governing body, to try and make the zoning officer's life a little bit easier.
Feeling has it has something that, as long as you're not going any more into the setbacks, and it meets all of everything else in the schedule, you know, you can move forward without the need to be mentioned, so just everyone like that.
Yeah. George, I think, was concerned with it too. He's like, it's crazy.
Mhm. There's a couple of squeaky wheels on that one.
Yeah. So if you guys authorize that, we can start working on that. Bring it to you next meeting.
Okay, so we have to make a motion on that.
No, once we present the, then you can do it. I just
Oh,
wanted
the next
you guys to
meeting.
be in the loop. So, Okay, we don't need any formal action at this point in time.
All right.
That's
All right, I think that ends it, so, motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
Roll call?
All in favor?
All right.
Thank you.
Who's opposed?
All right, you got your acknowledgement.
Congratulations.
You.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God, you're gonna take her away?
Sorry.
Yeah, well, at least I was here for it this time, right? Last time they voted me in, I wasn't.
Let me steal your pen.
Oh,
If you want
no.
Thank you.
If not, I have to stay them my law, so.
How do I let you know?
Yeah, you can. I just wanna just, familiarize yourself
Oh,
with
I'm
stuff.
on the 23rd. Today's the 20, it says 24th.
Already there.
And it's 24th. I'm having on my
Yeah, they
phone.
showed the movements. I think it was originally, contemplated for deliveries to the mall. So they didn't make it big enough for trucks to come in.
It seems tight.
Lanes, yeah.
And the DOT has a lot of